So when are you going to be back to work on these screens? Because basically for me, my biggest issue right now is if this is going in the next update, I'm going to need to give you UI screens that I can pretty much put together today. Otherwise, there's not really going to be enough time for you to customize the screens to make them look anywhere near presentable for the next update, which is supposed to go out on 4/7, which is the weekend after this. So we only have this weekend to customize the screens. So you're saying if it takes, like, if I don't get everything done today and tomorrow, then you would still have time to probably customize the UI? Because if that's true, I might be able to get some more of these stat requests in here. So it's more of what next week's going to be. Alright, then I think probably what I'll change here is it'll be our... Must be sorted on accuracy. And let me think. Most wins would be good, but for like win-loss percentage is a stat, but you wouldn't want to build a high score table based on win-loss ratio, specifically because then like somebody wins one game and they have 100% win-loss, so they'd never play again. So we need a third stat here, which is not win-loss ratio, but we need like a win-score ratio, like a win score. And it should be some value where so we could do this like based on most wins, and this would be based on our win score, which is our win-loss ratio and wins. Kind of together in like a weighted thing. So we'd have another stat here which would set that thing up. And I think I've got the stat in here, so what is the high score table type? That is like overall. The other thing we need is the context. And these are separate high score tables. So we actually have another thing here. We've got our stat context. So you can switch between those two. Stat history. This could give you all the context. Because this is a single player, so that's fine. And I don't think there's anything else I'm missing. So the question would be, how do we want to do the aggregate score? Where do we edit the values for that? Aggregate score would be something that like we can just try it using raw stats for now, reported from the game server. If we throw them in data, I do not have a good way to access it. I could have it as a data file that gets read in. That's not very good though. I could have it data driven from the back end, but that's not very good either. I mean, it's more complicated. We could have the score driven by the server, the backend server, when it actually finishes it. So we do like report stats and then we calculate a score for the stats. Let me just add that in there. That way it's a backend server thing, it's easy to data drive, and we can change it without downtime from our services. That's probably the better way to do it. Alright. How would we set this up? What would be the right way to handle scores for various actions? And are there any special actions that are not based on stats which we would want to give scores for? Because if it's not defined by the game server, then it's just based on these aggregate stats. It's probably better if it's driven by the actual backend servers, because then we can scrub stuff. Like if we want to tune the score system, I can just crawl the database, add up all your wins, losses, and everything back together again, and get your actual overall score. So backend database, yeah, the backend should handle it. Now, do we have any systems for loading dynamic game data at runtime for the game systems? Because I don't want to shove all this shit into configs, it's too much. We probably want a game data system for dealing with this stuff. So, dynamically loaded game data system for backend servers. You probably want that. Alright, well, let's get our stats going before we start on the UI then. So, first thing to do is I dynamically loaded game data system so I can actually do the back-end stuff. So how are we going to keep track of this crap? So we have a config, we have game data. So the only thing we have right now is the missions for this. We've got the game data service, which has this stuff in it. Is this not checked in? Well, that's bad. Oh, yeah, we need to reboot this guy. So we have missions, but I need like a game data cache, so why don't we just make a game data cache? We made missions cache, and this is kind of a... kind of a copy paste of this thing, but whatever. We don't need this sort of stuff. The thing was, missions are a special case because there are actually quite a bit of data in those missions. The generic game data cache, though, would be a better thing. This is mission data structures. So we just gotta go make it. Alright, so I need a new object here for the game. Do we have game objects? We do. So we got game mode options. We're gonna need a new one here. So this will be name. This will be score stats. So what we got for score stats? We got all of these. So now the tedious and boring part of outlining all of it. So this is how we'll calculate our score. So we also need to go to, like, we got Dashkin, we got game data in here. So we probably need another folder called stats. And we need stat scores.json. Alright, so these are going to be all the weights for this thing. So let's say a win is worth 10 points. Let's just do win is worth 50, a loss is worth 10, a goal is worth 10, an own goal is worth -5, an assist is worth 5, a ball touch is worth 1 by itself. A slide kick and punch aren't worth anything. A ground pound is worth 2. A ground pound air is worth 2. Pop up is worth nothing. Player touch is worth 1. Ground pound is worth 2, and ground pound air is worth 2 as well. Wall hit is worth -1, and matches played is worth 10. So by default, your minimum, like if you do nothing, you'll get at least 10 points. And if you punch somebody 50 times, it's as good as a win. Sure, we'll just go with it for now. Alright, so stat scores. So let's generate this and see what we got. Alright, so we've got this, and this data structure is a... What is this? It's in game, so it's going to be game underscore score stats. Yeah, so stats. So let's go ahead and snag that. We need like a whole game data object for all this stuff. We actually could put it all in the same game data file. Probably should. And zip it up and just deal with it that way, so it's one big crushed ball of stuff. So I have individual files on disk, but when they're out there, it'll just be one file. It'll be simple, easy to deal with, and we will get to go. Alright, so we'll grab that, download it. We need the all game data file. What is the name of this thing? It's current game data. This will just be get game data. And we'll leave the missions separate. I probably should have made the missions in something like this, but I didn't, so yeah, it's alright. Alright, so we've added it to the globals, we've done all this stuff. We're not actually notifying game users of the new data because we don't care. This is just server-side game data. So we should be fine. Alright, so let's get back to some of these things. We are going to want to go to the services, definitions. It's in enums, right? Alright, so I'll have a game data updated enum as well. Alright, and let's fill out all of our configs for this sort of stuff. Alright, so that's local. Test. And prod. So now we need to go to our tools for mission deployment tool. We're going to want to make a new class here, which is going to be WD game data deployment tool. Before I forget that, let's actually hook up our game data here. Excellent. Alright, so we want to make our mission, not our mission deployment tool, but the other tool. Let's copy it because it's got everything that we need. And throw it in there. Did I not? give this thing a class header last time. I did. Good. Let's add it to our main so we can actually call it. Okay, so services, game data. It looks like we need tools config set up for this. So let's go grab the tools config. Alright, so that's all set up for our configs. So game data missions, mission dir, let's do game data, game, yeah, just do game data, and that's going to be just Dashkin game data. So we'll need a few files. This will be the stats path is going to be equal to, it's in stats/score stats. So simple config, infrastructure, the game data folder doesn't exist. We don't care about mission data stuff. We do care about these guys. This will be a we need the all game data. So all data. So we're going to say folder exists. If the folder exists, alright, that's fine. Alright, so we're going to get all the files in the folder. No, that's not what we're going to get. Load up all the stats data, so alright, so we'll set the stats. Alright, so we have our version path is going to be here. Mission data file is not true. We need this guy. Our system's mission's updated, but we updated the enum, so it's game data updated. And we're going to need to actually go generate this thing over again to get that enum to compile. Looks like it compiled. Excellent. So let's go to our scripts. Let's get our game data script that we can call. So we've got our config path. We just need game data like that. It's not going to be our mission deployment tool. It is going to be our game data deployment tool. So that should work, and this will be our game data upload. So let's make sure our game data deployment actually works. We must specify an environment. I think it's going to explode. Yeah, I cannot find stats file. Excellent, so that works. So what we want to do is we want to check in this stuff, but we also want to double check that we make our game data cache. Which we do. To actually load this up again and make sure that our game data actually loads up. Version 0, zipped game data. Our game data is, we have all of our stats with all of our information. Wins are worth 50. Excellent. So we've loaded up all of our game data. Why are we trying to load twice? Oh, we're fine. Yeah, that's what it's supposed to do. It's supposed to go check that version file whenever we care. Excellent. So we have our game data rolling around. Let's get our Jenkins build on there. Let's see. I want to move this VSXD to another change list. Let's just make sure that all of our C++ compiles, because we're going to check stuff in. Let's not break the build. Spill water all over myself. I changed the global utilis header. How dare I? Alright, well, I think that's going to be fine. Everything looks good, so I'm going to go ahead and submit all this. So I'm going to need a sync configs in test. I need a sync configs in local. I need a sync configs in tools. I need to build our Java tools. And I need to build our Java server. I also need to change our deploy Dashkin game data job to deploy the deploy game data as well. So that's as simple as just adding another step in the build job, and I just need to wait for these to finish. It's just a big frickin' system. Well, we're getting there. Alright, so that's finished building. We're still waiting on the Java build. Alright, so that Java server finished, but our Java tools are still building. So just gotta chill out until that's finished. Alright, well, it's still building. So, publishing that guy. Alright, so let's go to our deploy Dashkin game data. Let's deploy it for local and see what we got going on. So it should deploy the missions first, and then it'll deploy the game data. Game data folder doesn't exist. Dashkin game data. What? I forgot to change the name. It should be game data, not the other. Alright, cool. So we actually have this stuff working. Let's go update it in test, and then we'll update it in prod. It's not out in prod, but might as well get some data out in prod just to have something going on. Yeah, it shouldn't exist in test yet. So now it does. Alright, game data now exists out there. Excellent. Good. So all of our game data now exists. So we can implement our actual usage of that game data. So when we go to our stats service here, we're going to go to report stats. All right. So what we need to do is when somebody calls report stats, we want to signal that we also want them to roll up the actual aggregated stats. So we need to go to our definitions file here. And let's snag everything. So for report stats, we're going to have another variable here, which is going to be auto aggregates. I guess apply aggregates or create aggregates. Create aggregate stats. Yeah, I think that's a reasonable thing to call it. So if that's true, then we are going to actually like create all this crap for our user. And this crap will be the basic overall score. We'll calculate it based on the past in stats and save that. Okay, so the two stats that we're going to create are, let's see. Win-loss and accuracy. Well, those are the two special stats, but the score stat is totally separate. So it's really just the score stat that we want to start with. All right, so if we're tracking aggregate stats, then basically we're going to do this score stat. And this is not a set, this is an adjustment. So That's fine.